Hey, GLP-1 plus size community. Before we jump into the podcast, please take the time to leave us a 5-star review on whatever audio platform you're listening to the podcast on. Share your story and how the podcast has helped you. This will help us get referred up in the audio platform so that we can reach more people that need our help, our support, and guidance from our doctors. Help us get loud and change things. Are you interested in understanding GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, wegovy, or Mounjaro? Then join us on the Plus Sides Cracking the Obesity Code, the groundbreaking podcast helping people change their lives one episode at a time. The Plus Sides podcast is a disruptor. We're breaking down barriers, smashing stereotypes, and sharing inspiring stories that'll leave you feeling informed and empowered. Join us every week to learn from doctors who are specialists around GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, wegovy, and Mounjaro. They'll provide you with science and facts to validate these incredible stories. But that's not all. We'll also bring you the voices of the GLP-1 Mounjaro TikTok community, real people who face the challenges of obesity-related diseases and disorders and discovered the incredible plus sides of GLP-1 medications. Our episodes are filled with heartwarming stories, laughter, and moments of triumph. You'll connect with our amazing community members who are reclaiming their health and experiencing their fullest lives. Are you ready to embark on a journey of discovery and empowerment? Tune in to the Plus Sides Cracking the Obesity Code, and together we'll change the narrative around obesity and end the stigma. Subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform and join our incredible community. Let's celebrate the plus sides of life together, because every story deserves to be heard.
"20 seconds a week to lose 20% of your weight in a year with diet and exercise." That's the power of GLP-1s through Roe. Roe helps find the medication that's right for you, based on cost, availability, and your weight loss goals. Losing weight with GLP-1s is possible through Roe.
Every life deserves to shine, and everyone deserves access to expert knowledge and medication. The Plus Sides Podcast. You're not alone. It's not your fault.
That one time.
Welcome to the Plus Sides Podcast.
Oh, remember that one time?
Yeah, remember that time in camp? No, remember that one time when I came to you and I was like, Kat, we should start a podcast, and we never went. We both have jobs and families and ADHD. Not to mention, we're both trying to lose weight. Like
all the therapies.
And then we're like, it'll be fine. And then we got Rosie O'Donnell on the podcast, and then it exploded. And then we won an award, and then it exploded, and we were like, it's fine. Everything's fine. It's recorded. Outtakes. One time a
welcome, everybody.
Welcome
to our reality show.
This is our reality show. It so is. It really is. If you think about it, it really is a reality show. If you don't know us, I'm Kim. This is the Plus Sides Podcast. This is Kat. This is Plus Sides Podcast. And we are the hosts of the Plus Sides Podcast. And we talk about a lot of different things. When we started this podcast, it was very much focused on GLP-1 medications and obesity. And as time went on, and we had doctors come on and people in the community come on, and we learned, we broadened our horizons and realized that this is a health and wellness podcast. It's all about the things that you need to live your best life, right? And we really try to focus on any kind of tools we think that can help you, but we do tend to lean towards the sciencey things, because we like the sciencey ones. But that's what we do here. We interview community members so that they have an opportunity to share their story. And we want to be able to give a voice to people that struggle with the disease of obesity, because it is a very silenced and marginalized community.
Yes.
And we also bring on lots of different experts to teach us things so that you have everything you need to advocate for your health. That's what we do here. And I'm Kim, and I've been on this journey for 2 years. I have been up and down and around about again my whole life, and for sure up again over the past month. I'm telling you, when I have stress, up goes the weight. It doesn't matter if there's a GLP-1 or not. Doesn't matter. Bam, bam, every time. And I think that's why I've hit some of these stinking stalls this year. Oh, which we should totally ask Dr. Moe about.
Yes.
That's like such
got some good shorts on that too. So
yes. Yeah. Okay. And how are you? You look golden and beautiful this evening.
I feel like I kind of look like Sheena Easton from '88. Like,
yeah,
it's lovely. Baby takes the morning train. All right.
Oh, only you would know that.
No, that's not old. I'm trying to hide my
got to you.
graduation, my big, huge monument to my diploma.
What? Why are you trying to hide it?
Because it says 2002. It's been 22 years since I graduated from college. Okay, so we're going south.
What?
I'm Kath.
Big baby.
But yeah, I'm Kath. I almost said Kath. I do not like being called Kath, so don't ever call me that. Kath, Kath. Instead of like short for Catherine. Nobody does. I just said that. I'm so weird. I'm strange.
It's good that you tell me because Beverly's listening. Beverly, I called you Beth one time and she's like, don't do that. I was like, oh shit, sorry. All right, I'll take it.
Yeah. So I'm Kat. I think we've been out about the same amount of years, right? I'm almost on 2 years. I was super secretive, top secret about being on for a long time. I was so secretive. I had to stay at my friend's house when we were moving in between houses. I stayed in my friend's basement. And when I got my shipment, she's like, why is it refrigerated? Oh, it's just ingredients for a cake. I mean, just mind your business.
Oh, I remember that.
Let me take this downstairs. I didn't tell her until like 6 months in. Yeah. I don't think I made it public until we started doing the podcast.
Yeah. Because you found me, I posted about it and you were like, friend, I'm doing it too. And I was like, what? IRL friend.
Yeah, right? I told my husband when I first got it, he was like,
well, sure.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, but for I guess 2 years, 60 pounds down. I sat at it for a while. I went up. This year was kind of an interesting, but
same.
Found the compounds. I found compound was stronger, but I did a whole lot of mental health checks this year. And when you mentioned that on the onset of the show, when we were talking, we might have been, I don't know, because
we talk a lot.
Obesity is all encompassing. It's everything. It's your goals in life, maybe your career aspirations. It could affect that. Your mental health, your focus. It's all encompassing. Weight is just one piece of it. And it is probably, the last socially acceptable form of discrimination is obesity. So, and I think sometimes that we absorb that trauma and absorb that feeling and we shrink. And so this journey has been like a lot of ups and downs, a lot of self-discovery, and I'm still on it.
Same.
Same.
I'm not sure it ends, Kat. Like, I think that we think it does, which we'll talk about when everybody gets on, but I think that we think it does. We think we owe you, because that's always what we've done. We've dropped weight. We try to keep it off. We usually gain it back. Like if you have obesity, or like, we know that whole dance, right? And the reason we do is because we always thought about weight, right? Yeah. We always thought about the numbers. We always thought about the pounds. That was the goal, is getting to this number, right? But if you're noticing on our journey, you kind of get to this place where you're like, well, now what? Right? I'm on something that can help me maintain. What? Maintenance? Like, the fact that that's even like a possibility, I think blows people's minds. So we're going to explore all that here. And we are very glad to have you along with us. Today's guest is Caitlin, and we're going to invite her in.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey.
We got you in. We did it. Got past the squirrels.
I don't know if you have that, but we do.
No,
we balance it out when sometimes we'll have a guest host on and they kind of balance us out. When it's just me and Kat. Yeah, squirrel. Have you? Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah.
We would love to hear about your journey, unfiltered and uncut. We'd like you to take the space. Kat and I we also call it uninterrupted, because we go on mute. And we'll let you flail. Don't worry. But because we're conversational, like that's typical ADHD. You know what I mean? Like they're always like, oh, me too. And it sounds like they're trying to one up you, but they're just trying to relate with you.
Trying to mirror and relate.
Yeah.
And so that neurodiversity.
Like,
let's just go.
And we just did it. Yeah. We want you to have it. We want you to have the moment, have the space. So we're going to be quiet. No, and then I'm going to make you big.
Yeah. Okay? I love what Kat just said too. Like I was literally just talking to my therapist about it this morning, like just my lifelong journey with obesity, and I'm still in losing. I'm not at maintenance yet, but like just it's so different still, even just being in like not having to like do something ridiculous and unsustainable to lose weight. And so that's kind of my story too. And like, I think a lot of us probably benefit from talking to someone professional who can help us kind of deal with a lot of the like that body dysmorphia and things like that you go through when you're losing significant weight. So I agree with you that like the obesity thing is just kind of becomes like an all-encompassing thing that we deal with. And if you haven't had that as a lived experience, it's hard to understand. I think I agree. Like totally.
Absolutely. I think that's so true. I found you on IG because I mentioned I really want to talk about PCOS and infertility, insulin resistance. It all kind of relates to obesity and these medications. And I found your page and I was like, you want to come on the show? And I think that we need to highlight it more. I think a lot of people don't highlight it, And we've learned on the show, Caitlin, from doctors that it usually takes about 5 years on average to diagnose PCOS. It's often misdiagnosed, if not undiagnosed, for many reasons, especially for people who deal with obesity. It's dismissed as a weight issue, right? As opposed to what it actually is, which is a metabolic issue, right? Which technically is a weight issue. I don't know. What came first, chicken or the egg? I don't know. But luckily, we have Dr. Moe, who's going to come on after. We can all have that conversation together. But before then, I would love to hear your story. And thank you for coming here and being vulnerable and sharing it.
Yeah, of course.
You take this.
Yeah. So I think, for me, obesity, I kind of mentioned this a little bit, but it's been something that I have struggled with for pretty much my entire life that I can remember. My weight was always something that was an issue. And that was, even as a kid growing up and, got to puberty and like, talking about PCOS specifically, literally since puberty had irregular cycles for like my whole life, which is a huge hallmark of PCOS, just not ovulating regularly. But growing up, it was something that, you grow up with carrying excess weight and it's brought up at every doctor's appointment. And that's something that even still, like you go in for, I have a stomach bug and I'm at urgent care because I just need some nausea because I want to stop throwing up. And someone comes and talks to you about your weight and you're like, thank you. I know, not necessary. But really what kind of got me to like digging into what was going on, I always struggled with my weight and would always kind of be in this space of trying to do whatever I could. But the only way to really manage my weight was to do things unsustainable, like completely cut out carbs, work out 2 hours a day, 6 days a week, months on end to lose 15 pounds. And I think that PCOS, now that I know that this is something that I struggle with, played a huge role in that from the time that I think I was in puberty. But really, especially once I was in school, had a lot more stress that I was dealing with. A lot of those PCOS symptoms that are kind of hallmarks of having PCOS kind of came out. Struggling with the hirsutism or facial hair, excess facial hair growth, carrying a lot of excess weight, especially in your abdomen, difficulty sleeping, moods and anxiety, depression. That was something that I started really struggling with when I started having a lot more, especially, being in nursing school, which is not the most, like, it's not the least stressful thing you can do. And I started kind of having all of these symptoms. And, I was in my 20s, mid 20s, still having, irregular cycles. And then all of the symptoms that I mentioned I was struggling with, made it through nursing school. And had kind of brought it up with doctors when I would see them, like, hey, I have these symptoms, and never had a doctor dig further into it, just saying like, yeah, you meet the criteria for diagnosis of PCOS. So guess that's what we're doing. And, none of them ever really wanted to run blood work, unfortunately, or do any ultrasounds, anything like that, to like make an official diagnosis. They were just kind of like, yep, you meet all the criteria, that track. That was kind of, unfortunately, my experience. And having, some medical education myself, I didn't really want to just go on hormonal birth control to mask the symptoms that I had, all the while not having regular cycles, not trying to kind of address the actual issue at hand. Because that to me was more like we're just trying to cover up the fact that you don't have regular cycles and that you have acne and that you have facial hair. And we are not going to do anything like to dig deeper into what I now know, root causes, insulin resistance and things like that, that really change how your body metabolizes food or blood sugar and insulin and all of those very complex metabolic pathways that when you have PCOS, those are disrupted. And, moving forward to, working as a nurse full-time on night shift in the ER, the stress just got worse. We had a pandemic, and, kind of tracking down what I could do. But also working full-time night shift in the pandemic, didn't really have a lot of time to be like chasing down doctors that would do more than just say, yeah, I agree. You have these symptoms, like you meet all the criteria. So let's dig into this more. Like, because, a lot of us just, we shouldn't, I guess this is the thing that I struggled with, is having to like advocate for myself, to like try to dig deeper. Is like, I just didn't have the resources, capacity for that where I was at with the stress of, being a night shifter in a pandemic and working in the ER and not seeing my family for 6 months and things like that, where it just wasn't, I knew that I had these issues, but I didn't have the time on a doctor that would listen or want to do something to help. And so I started doing some more reading just kind of on my own of like things that could potentially be beneficial. None of it really addressed the weight, but I started taking a supplement that I found. It's called SMOO, and it's more of a natural. It's got like inositol, vitamin D, have been shown to be beneficial for people with PCOS. And for the first time in my life, I had regular cycles that were within the normal range of like 30 to 35 days. That became like something that was like a huge change for me. Just taking the supplement, I had less facial hair growth. I had less, like fewer low moods, things like that, but my weight didn't really budge like at all. But for the first time, I was able to see at least some difference in what was going on, versus just kind of masking the symptoms or ignoring them and kind of wishing them away because I had too much on my plate to deal with them. And then that kind of in that time frame, I also met my husband. We started dating, and we both knew we wanted to have kids. But something that with PCOS does happen is issues with fertility, whether it's not ovulating so you can't get pregnant, or having difficulties with progesterone and things like that. And that was something that, we talked about. I felt a little bit better, knowing that I was on the supplement that made my cycles regular and things like that. So I knew it was helping, even if I wasn't losing significant weight with it. And, was able to, so we got married and then started trying. And then I actually was tracking my cycles like very, very closely, like all the things you can do to track your cycles. I was doing them. To like know and time, like when I ovulated, things like that, because especially with PCOS, you have these irregular cycles usually where it's harder to get for the fact alone that you might not know when you're ovulating. And so I did get pregnant the first time and unfortunately lost that pregnancy. That was like 3 months after we started trying, and talked to the OB about it and was like, I have PCOS. I have all these symptoms. Like doctors have been like, yeah, that tracks. You have this going on. And she was like, yeah, we're not going to look into it until you have 3 miscarriages in a row. Like, we're just not going to look into it. Even knowing that I had a, reproductive, but also, metabolic disorder was not, she was just like, just keep trying. And that was really hard because when you lose a pregnancy, it's really hard. And so to hear, we're not even going to do anything until you lose 2 more pregnancies, was just, that was a low point for me. But eventually did kind of, pick myself up, and we decided to keep trying. And I have a little boy who turns in 2 weeks now, actually, which is insane. Just can't believe how fast But, and to even get to that point of being able to get pregnant, I was taking just a ridiculous amount of supplements that I had kind of read about myself because, like I said, no doctors were really doing anything to want to like address it. The doctors that I had seen. And so I was reading about supplements. I was taking the SMU and then, CoQ10 to help with egg health, things like that, there were some suggestions that they could be beneficial, especially if you have PCOS. And it was just one of those things, got towards the end of my pregnancy, started my pregnancy at a higher weight. And then at the end of my pregnancy was diagnosed with preeclampsia, which is especially, if you carry excess weight, you are at higher risk for preeclampsia and other pregnancy complications. But thankfully was able to deliver my son, major complications with the preeclampsia. And then was also, once I delivered, at my highest weight I had ever been at. It's normal to gain weight during pregnancy, but that doesn't necessarily mean that once that baby's out, we're comfortable with how our bodies have changed and, kind of got back on track with the SMU and went to see kind of my story of how I ended up on a GLP-1 is I went to see a doctor for something completely unrelated, and it was in an urgent care. And it again was that like, this is completely unrelated, but here is my spiel about how you need to lose some weight, and why don't you come back in 2 weeks and we'll start some blood work and we'll try to get you losing some weight. But it was kind of, I was like not ready for that conversation. Like, I've literally just met you. I came to you for something completely unrelated. And that was something that was just I wasn't receptive to. But it did get me, kind of thinking, because I had been thinking along the lines of a GLP-1 for a little bit, being postpartum, and I were kind of talking about like, well, what can we do? So I did kind of what I started doing, what I usually do, which is just cutting out carbs, because I know that I'll lose at least some weight, about 10 pounds on my own. But we also, started to try and figure out with our insurance, like, what could we do? And at that point, I've been working kind of in the health and wellness space, and with GLP-1s as a nurse for about a year. So I knew that they were successful, but I also hadn't considered one for myself. Like, it just wasn't a step that I was ready to take. I think part of it, I live in an area of the country where there are a lot of people with disposable income who would come to us and try to get these medications that they really truly didn't need them. Their BMI was something like 22. And so I, even before I got on a GLP-1, struggled with those misconceptions of like, these are just for not necessarily even people who need them. And then that was like one of those things where it almost, in my mind, like misconceptions that I think a lot of people have about GLP-1s. But then I saw other patients that I had that, I had a patient that successfully lost 100 pounds and is so much healthier now. And so it was something that my husband and I just kind of started talking about. And we started looking into like, okay, well, what can we do? But found out that my insurance won't cover it. Prior auths didn't matter to them. Nothing mattered. They just weren't going to cover it. Even if I met the qualifications, which I absolutely did. And so basically without a type 2 diabetes diagnosis, they were not going to cover anything for me at all. And so I started kind of looking into, well, how can I do this? Because I couldn't afford $1,300 a month to self-fund, or even like $600 a month to self-fund. But knew about kind of compounding, which is why I'm actually on compounded tirzepatide, is because I'm kind of stuck in this area where I have we tried the insurance battle and it didn't work. And so ended up going with a telehealth company, and actually had like a very productive conversation with the nurse practitioner about why she thought it would be beneficial for me, and started compound tirzepatide about, I think it's been almost 6 months now, which is crazy. And it just changed up with food entirely, like immediately. I was definitely a very quick responder. Like that first dose, I was like, I don't have any cravings. What is food? Like, I don't care. Which for me, like I had always struggled with food noise, and I didn't really even realize that food noise was like our like that was something I struggled with and had in my life until it was gone. And then I was like, is this what it's like to not think about like the cookies in the break room all day until you finally just cave in and eat one? Like, and things like that, where it was just like this absolute change in like, some of that is, you know, with PCOS, the rise and fall of hormone out of whack can actually impact cravings and things like that as well. And just didn't even realize how much of an impact it had until I got on a GLP-1. And then, you know, it was just so much easier to do, you know, the high protein and the, you know, better portion control and things like that. And since then, you know, I've been going for 25 weeks now. I've lost about 35 pounds, which is awesome. You know, I am very much a proponent of eating enough and not starving ourselves and losing 5 or 6 pounds a week and losing a ton of muscle mass, which, you know, so I've been strength training, doing all of that. And that also helps with, you know, glucose regulation and blood sugar regulation to have an increased muscle mass. But and just also kind of changed my career goals too, you know, working in the health and wellness space. But I was also kind of thinking about, you know, what would have been different for me if I had had a provider that took the time, if I had had someone who wanted to help me get to the root of what was going on and not just kind of put a Band-Aid on it, and who was willing to kind of do the legwork. And so, you know, doing as far as everything, I'm applying to go back to school to become a nurse practitioner. And I would love to, you know, and do family practice, family medicine, and work in the obesity space, because I think that there is such a weight bias and weight stigma in medicine that I have experienced myself. And if I can be someone who helps people and isn't like pushing them away just from these ways we address it, someone who can, I don't want to, it sounds trite saying just help, but it's just, you know, it's the implication that like, there's so much more and there, we can do so much better for people who have obesity, because I think so many of us are kind of marginalized by the medical field. And so, you know, being able to, you know, if I can go back and I can make a difference for just whoever my patients are, you know, I don't have to influence the whole world. I just want to be someone who makes a difference for my patients, because I finally had someone who listened to me and it changed my life. So that's kind of my story and where I'm at. Still kind of on the GLP-1 journey, documenting it. I decided to document it on Instagram, mostly to hold myself accountable. And then people just started following me. So I was like, all right, whatever. And, you know, didn't want to share with my extended family and close friends, because I know that is still comes towards these medications. So, you know, only in my life actually know that I'm on a GLP-1. And, you know, it's something that I am starting to be more open about. But I was in a very vulnerable place when I started a GLP-1, because is this going to work for me? Is this going to be something I can do sustainably long-term, things like that. So that's kind of my journey with PCOS, and, you know, we would love to have another kid someday, and, you know, be able to have a healthier pregnancy at a lower weight, because I think that would make a huge impact on like a future pregnancy as well. So yeah, that's kind of my story of being, you know, PCOS and the journey. And
thank you so much for sharing all of that.
Yeah.
I love it. I know, I mean, you and I've talked, so I know your story before, but it resonates with me a lot, because I had 2 miscarriages and also was brushed aside and had all the things for the PCOS, and nobody said shit to me. Like, you know, and I didn't, I don't have a medical background, so I didn't know what to ask. I didn't think maybe I should take a supplement. I always just thought my problem was the weight. And then like through this podcast and through the doctors that have come on, we've learned that weight is the symptom of the disease, right? And so it's just very different. It's a different way of like, I think, looking at it, I got my miracle baby and I had 2 miscarriages before my son, and it was just awful. And when I went to the doctor, especially the second time, when I went to see a specialist the second time, they were like, no, nothing's wrong with you. But I wanted them to say, here's what's wrong and here's the pill, right? But they didn't. They were like, just lose some weight.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, it's my fault because I'm fat, right? I can't have a baby because I'm fat. Like, and that just like that internalizing. And, my son was quite the surprise, and actually happened after I had my miscarriage, and I had a miscarriage called a partial molar.
Food has definitely been a very dominant voice in my head. That's not the main focus anymore. Dieting, exercising, and adding GLP-1s through Roe is a game changer. I have such a sense of mental freedom since I started with Roe. Food no longer controls my thoughts. Family time used to revolve around food, and now it revolves around what we're gonna go do together.
When I had that, I had to be off of the meds. I swear I'm going somewhere with this. I had to be off of not off the meds. I had to be off of not like getting pregnant. I couldn't try anything I had to go all the way down to 0 and then for 6 whole months.
Oh, wow.
So I wouldn't have a reoccurrence of this type of pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I think I'll go back to school and get my MBA. I think I'll do this. I think I do that. Because I had decided I wanted to be a mom at that point. But I didn't know what was what or if it was ever going to happen. And then I won a trip at this company Kat and I used to work at together.
Oh, that's okay, Hawaii.
Yeah. And when I was in Hawaii, it had been the full time. And I was like, listen, let's just don't mess with it. Like, I can't even deal with it. I don't want to die. I don't do anything. I just want to go have a good time. We swam with sea turtles. I went on this like fun, like adventure, like John went on waterfall hikes. Like we just chilled the F out. You know what I'm saying? And I came back and I got pregnant. Just like that.
We went on a cruise and like 2 weeks later I was pregnant.
What is it? I don't even know. Like maybe that's the answer to these questions.
Over here. Yeah, over here. None of that works.
Yeah.
No.
None of that.
We are going forward with child-free life.
Yeah.
I
have to tell you.
All these 2 years, it's been nothing but therapy, but that child-free life, now we are going at it full.
I mean, yeah. But I think that the thing is about
I'll be the crazy drunk aunt. It's okay. I smell like wine bread. Inappropriate conversation.
You're a great crazy drunk aunt. You're my favorite crazy drunk aunt.
I'm a favorite aunt to many.
I know.
And then I give them back to you when I'm done.
I know. And I got to tell you, now that Joanna, our good friend, has a baby and she just turned 1 and she's the most delicious, chunkiest baby.
Very chunky baby.
We just went to her birthday party and we got to see each other. And when we were there, and the baby would cry and I realized I could just give it back. I was like, oh, I think I am done. I was like, here you go. It's
There's a certain threshold. At a certain age, I was like, you know what? No.
It was no.
Stop it. Stop it.
It was 44. It took that long, but I am one of the biggest reasons also like with this podcast is nobody told me any of this stuff. Nobody talked to me about insulin resistance or PCOS, any of those things, no matter what. And my son was born in 2012. Victoza came out in 2012, right? Mm-hmm. Which was, it was the daily GLP-1, but it was out. I could have taken it then. Like, what would my family look like now? I wanted more children. I really, really did. I mean, I think everything happens for a reason, but I really did want more children. It is my favorite thing is being a mom. It is hardest thing, but it's my favorite thing. And now he's like 12 and he's starting to smell and he's not going to want to hang out with me anymore. Like, it's like
have little bit for a little while and be like, oh,
I'm just like,
she cries a lot. So I'm going to give her back to her mom.
Yeah, sure. Who can I give Lauren to when I'm done with him? He's like, he's a teenager. Who do you want him now?
I love the launch hugs. I'm official now.
Oh yeah,
launch.
Did. That was a big
deal. Hugs now. He's like, no, and he backs up and he runs at me.
I know. I loved it so much. I loved it. I love it. My son, when he got to see
It blessed
Kim,
my soul.
jumped at her. And afterwards, he went sure our cat was going to ride. And she goes, well, that was the best thing in the whole world. And he was like, oh, see, he's a good guy. He's just a little stinky.
Boys stink. It's okay.
Well, I want us to talk more about your story. I want to talk about like the underpinning of the medical things and a lot of the things that you brought up, talk about supplements and all these things. There are a lot of supplements out there. The only thing I ever want to put across in terms of supplements is nothing is going to be the same as a GLP-1, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes you can't get it. And I feel like people, if they want to try something else, then that's okay. Just like have reasonable expectations of what it is and what it's not. And I'm okay with that. Like as long as there's knowledge around it, I have no problem. So I'd love to talk with about it. And just for this conversation, I want to invite in Dr. Moe. Hey, Dr. Moe.
That's hilarious.
Welcome to the
Yes,
podcast.
I agree with supplements, but of course I'm going to give you the disclaimer and say, make sure that it's a risk benefit, right? So don't just be popping supplements just because.
Yeah, because I think we've all done that, right? Like,
anything we do is a risk benefit, right? Anything we do is a risk benefit. It's what we think is a risk benefit, what we take, what we eat, what we drink, who we hang out with. This big benefit, no risk.
Yep. Love it. Love it. I think that's important to me. Even like even with GLPs, right? They're is the risk small? Yeah. But is there one? Yeah. And you should talk about it, right? Like you should see if it's right for you. Well, for people who don't know you, which is madness. But this is Dr. Moe. Moe, can you please tell us who you are and how you help people?
Yes, I'm Dr. Moe. Dr. Gibbons actually in like kind of the real world, but this is my real world now. So I'm classically trained in emergency medicine. So I could absolutely feel the night shift full time. Years. Yeah. The night shift stress for 15 years full time is and I still love nights. When I do work in the ER, I only work nights.
Oh, nice.
So that's my classical training. But I do have a lifestyle medicine practice called Active Medical Solutions. But more importantly, I now coach globally because exactly what you said. It's not just about a number on the scale. It's your whole life. So that's why lifestyle medicine for me is literally the culmination. My husband calls me a 25-year overnight success because I've been a binge eater. Well, I was put on my first diet at 1 because I was too fat and my pediatrician put me on skim milk. So
babies are supposed to be like,
that hurt my soul, Dr.
Oh my God.
I know. I mean, talk about like out of the womb.
Babies are the best. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, when I was born, I was a preemie.
Babies is wonderful.
Yeah. Shouldn't have survived. Should not have survived.
How early were you?
9 weeks in 1973. So they pretty much threw me in an incubator and said, hope it goes well.
Oh my God. And look at you now.
And salty it is. So anyhow. So yes, I mean, I've battled my weight for honestly as long as I can recall. I remember using food as a drug of choice since I was 6. So because really, what are you going to get when you're in that day and age? Right now, you can get whatever you want. But
scary,
right? Yeah. And but food is food is not my primary drug. I say this all the time, and you love when those things come to you in the middle of a conversation. So here's some deep words here. Food is not my primary drug. Food was my primary solution because I could not tolerate the way I was feeling. Yeah. I was scared. Things were somewhat chaotic. I wasn't comfortable. I didn't feel safe. And food helped that. And so it went for 45 plus years. Yeah. And July 4th, 2022 is my Independence Day. I started Mounjaro. I started Mounjaro, and Caitlin, I hear you. Within 6 hours, I was like, it's really quiet in here.
Yeah. Just like
things are a little odd.
What do I do with this silence now?
What's going on?
It was just bizarre. It was like all of a sudden I had been transported into a different universe with somebody else's brain.
Yes. Yeah. You're like, what? I thought I had a stroke.
I was like,
when it first happened, I was like,
what's going on?
Yeah.
Like, and then I was like, I have to tell people. I mean, that's because I couldn't, I've been doing some sort of coaching since before life coaching was a thing. And back when I was an athletic trainer, even I would sit with the high school kids because their guidance counselor didn't know what to do with them. So I became that role for them because that's what I do. I help. Well, see, now what I do is I help people build a life they don't need to retire from. That is my primary mission, to help as many people in the world do that.
Nice.
That's my goal.
Nice.
A little different. A little different.
I like it. Different's great. We're very different humans. We like it.
And that's the thing.
Let your freak fly here, boo. It's fine.
I like it. Found my tribe. Thank you very much.
Yes.
But no, it's difficult because, and again, we rail against the injustices that we felt, and I was angry in the chat as Caitlin was talking because, my doctor also pretty much told me, well, just eat less. Yeah. Don't you think I thought of that? Yeah. I'm coming to you for help. And I finally, because, as a physician, I usually got my medical care from someone, a friend or whatever. Mm-hmm. I finally said, okay, I'm going in for blood work. I'm going to get everything, got to get my insulin resistance tested. I'm going to do all the things. I haven't done it since 2016. I go in and I bare my soul, tell them I can't stop eating and I need help. This was a month and a half after an Ironman attempt. And I say attempt. It wasn't like I did 3 miles. I did 2/3 of that thing. I got pulled off the bike. Oh, maybe half, whatever. I got pulled off the bike at mile 80 because I wasn't strong enough to battle the wind. So telling me to eat less and move more. I'm a certified nutritionist. I was a triathlon coach for over 10 years. I held athletic trainer certification for 26 years. Sorry, we won't go the anger.
Yeah, it's like trauma, Dr. Moe. Like that's the thing is people don't understand. People don't understand, right?
They don't. And I'm actually going to offer a bit of a rebuttal. I won't take the gloves off. No, but a bit of a rebuttal because I saw even some of Caitlin, your words hurt me a little. Not because they hurt me, they hurt you. Mm-hmm. We feel the need to earn a medication. I'm not sick enough. I'm not big enough. I'm not sick enough. And I said this today on our public live. And when I came out of my mouth, I was like, that had to have been a God thought because I did not come up with that one. Are you going to tell somebody, not you personally, but is a physician going to tell somebody, you can't have Lexapro when you're depressed until you want to self-harm? Mm-hmm. You're not sick enough. No, that's not the point. So, somebody has a BMI of 22. I don't have that thought anymore where you don't qualify because I know how sick my brain is and my BMI is 20. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And my brain is still a shit show up there. Like you said, Kim, with stress, it's like, did I inject anything this week? Because stress just negates all of it.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Yeah. Because of the hormones.
I know, right? I need to live on a mountain somewhere. No, I don't.
Right.
Live in the
that would just stress me out. I'd be like, what's happening? I have FOMO so bad. I was on a mountain.
Seriously, that's my book right there. I mean, I wrote this. I hate when I coach myself. I hate it. But that's in my book, right? Our overwhelm is manufactured. It doesn't matter if I'm in a room by myself. I will make something up.
Absolutely. I will.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tangent.
Listen to me, Kat always say.
The question that I have for you, you kind of answered it a little bit in your introduction. So I'll just ask the latter part. So you told us that you struggled with your weight for 4 years. I also want to say that you're like the first medical professional I feel like superbly seen by because I've been so into fitness all of my life, but I was also a binger and I went to Overeaters Anonymous. Something was always wrong with me. So bravo. Thank you, Dr. Moe.
It's perfect. And I don't, a lot of doctors won't talk about it because we can't be fallible, right? I am human. Mm-hmm. When I pinch myself, it hurts, and I make mistakes every day. And when I do make a mistake and I move beyond it, it helps my patients and it helps my clients. That's why the deep work gets deeper. And when you get to the middle of the onion, right, when there's no more layers, physically and metaphorically, it's really hard. It's like walking around bleeding from your eyeballs. It's so painful. And I'm choosing not to turn to food for solace. Yeah.
And it's hard to know where to turn. Like, I don't know. Like, did y'all experience that? Because like for me, like when it did turn off and then I had feelings and I remember feeling it sever like a cord, like that fast. And I was
Mine
like,
wasn't, mine wasn't as fast. It was very gradual, but I think it also took a lot of still took a lot of mental work from it. I think mine was definitely mind, body, spirit, everything. So, and I realized this in my spin class this morning. Like, I'm finally not feeling so fit, because I still would like fixate a little bit on food, but not like I used to, but it was there.
I get it.
But anyway.
Go ahead.
I was like, what other like eye-opening things have you experienced since the GLP-1?
So the biggest eye opener for me is that, like, I never tested for PCOS. I was not positive for PCOS. My ovaries don't know what they're doing. But it's not PCOS. I would just harbor these huge egg sacs, and when they blow, let me tell you, it's super comfortable. But you got to remember, I was around when dinosaurs roamed the earth. So when I was getting diagnosed, no one ever I'm 50. I don't know when that happened, but it's good because I like it. Because hopefully this is midlife. We're going to rock the shit out of the second half. So anyway, back then they just put me on the pill, right? And I was on the pill for 20 years.
Answer for everything. Yeah.
It was helpful. Honestly, I was, thank God the internet wasn't around when I was in college. But, looking, and after I had our son, when I was 40, I didn't want to go back on the pill for the risk of blood clots, because that's a hell no. And as I've gone through the obesity medicine space and the lifestyle medicine space, going for both of those board certifications right now, which is a double-edged sword, right? Because education doesn't always mean, I know. Okay. That's too deep. Okay. Forget it. But what I really did learn is that there was so much metabolic derangement in my body. It didn't show up on labs. Every time I get labs done, it was, oh, you're just fat. Your HDL's fine because you work out like a fiend. I'm not addicted. God, I wish I was addicted to exercise. I do. I'm sorry. I'll throw that out there. It takes an act of Congress to get me off the couch. But my LDL was high, so I did have hypercholesterolemia, but I've always had it. Not terrible, not like my aunt, she's in the 450s. But just because my numbers didn't show it, I was kind of angry that people made me justify, even to myself, being on a medication. My numbers don't show it, but my brain's a disaster. Test that, because I've been carving this neural pathway since since birth, right? Because you're put on a diet at 1. When you're going on the growth curve like that, you're using food a little more than a natural thing. Well, it's almost like PCOS, right? Because we talk about, doctors will say you just need to lose weight. Well, no shit. Like, I got that part. Tell me, Dr. Obvious, tell me something I don't know. But with PCOS, I was actually we have a women's health specialist in our group, one of our NPs is, and which is so much fun, by the way. I'm like, oh, okay, ask her, because we got people who love hormones. I'm like, ask him. So anyhow, but we were talking about this, and she's been, diagnosed with PCOS in her teens. She's also, I think, 49 or 50. And so she's always had it. But again, once that snowball starts, like in anything else in life, once that snowball starts, is it the chicken or the egg? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But we can't go in and, fix the PCOS right now. But now we actually have something that can manage it, right? These are chronic medical conditions. And my binge eating is a chronic medical condition, just like depression, just like schizophrenia. Thank God, not just like schizophrenia. Sorry, I'm grateful for that. My uncle had it. But they're medical conditions. This is not, it's not in my head. In the 70s, when Medicare and Medicaid stated or made the determination that obesity is a cosmetic disorder, that was step 1 to shooting ourselves in the foot. Step 2 was the healthy at any size movement. You might be today, but you're not going to be tomorrow. You are going to be metabolically deranged, and it just happens over time. And I heard the best lecture in one of my very first obesity medicine lectures. Well, the really good one, this lady put this diagram up, right? And it had like the Krebs cycle from hell. I was like, I'm like, please don't make me know all this. Oh God, I have to know all this. And she said, nowhere in this diagram is the word willpower. It was hormones, it was neural pathways, it was receptors. She said, nowhere in this is willpower. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not flawed. I'm not morally flawed. My body is flawed as shit, don't get me wrong. But I'm not morally flawed, right? I'm not a bad person because I was very successful in a lot of other areas. But why couldn't I do these couple of things? And I've still got a couple things left that I don't do well, which is why I coach, because I can't keep something I don't give away. And it's not just with patients, because not all of my patients want my coaching. Lots of patients just want drug and go, drug and go. I'm like, but you need the other part. So anyhow, that's the mental clarity that came along with no longer living a life run by food.
Yeah.
And people will look at me now and say, you're too skinny.
What is that?
I'm like, how about you not comment on my body?
How about, like whatever happened to just talking behind my back?
Yeah, just leave it at that.
Right behind my Ozempic ass.
Go over and talk behind my Ozempic butt, okay? Like, what happened? Like the internet got here and everybody was like, let's just say it online. Like,
I almost bought shirts that said Active Medical Solutions on the front and on the back. Ask me about my Ozempic ass.
I love that.
I was like, oh God, but backspace, right? The internet, I need to backspace. I need to try to be, because people will ask, are you sure you're a doctor? Oh yeah, I got the debt to prove it, man.
And the stress.
It's better now though. It's better now because now I'm living a life I can do. Like I want to do this till I'm dead. Sorry, please let that be a part from now.
Yeah, quick.
Like everyone's knocking on shit.
We're all knocking. That's good.
But so I don't want to ramble. I want to know, what can I help you guys with?
I think if people can understand a little bit about, metabolically, like how PCOS sort of relates to insulin resistance and how these medicines treat, like why do they work? How do these treat insulin resistance? I think a lot of people, there's a common misconception, even when you're first getting started, they call them the weight loss shots, right? They don't understand, that that's not what these are, but that is what people call them. The Ozempic weight loss, taking Ozempic for weight loss. And one day it will change.
There goes my eye twitch. There we go.
I know. I can't even, like every time I'm like, stop. But that's how people know them. Like that we did an interview. So like we were filming a documentary and kind of about all this and our experience. And we did an interview, went to Ponce City Market in Atlanta and just interviewed some random people. And nobody knew what the hell we were talking about. We would say GLP-1s, we would say Semaglutide, nothing. But when I said, hey, would you be interested in telling us your thoughts on Ozempic? Everybody knew.
Everybody.
And everybody's opinion was leave it for the diabetics for the most part. And then eventually we got someone that was like in nursing school. And we got some really good, like people kind of coming around, but none of them really knew. Like none of them, it was, and it was for sure Ozempic. Like it's Ozempic for weight loss. It's, you know what I mean? And we just listened and just documented and tried not to educate them. But it was hard, but it was a cool experience because I just realized that the majority of the people, because we're kind of an echo chamber on TikTok, majority of the people outside of that, that's how they think about it. Ozempic for weight loss. Yeah. Right. And I don't think people understand. And I'm trying to from what we're learning from the doctors, right, is that they treat what's wrong, right? They go to that disordered part of the body, right? And they treat it and then it starts to regulate and right. As opposed to let me just treat the symptom, which is the hunger. Right. Which is well, that's so I would love if you could sort of explain it to us,
Yeah. So for the first time, we actually have what I think. Okay. And then this is from studies, right? It's an opinion. We know what we say about opinions, but it's a very educated opinion. So, but really for the first time, instead of attacking obesity as a thing, right? Mm-hmm. These drugs, again, God, it's the same as my coaching. Weird when this thing pops up, but it's an inside out phenomenon rather than the outside in. You're never going to have true healing going inside out, right? Yeah. Phentermine, fat burners, hydroxycut, all the things we did, right? Yeah. Trying to white knuckle it. Same, right? Still risk benefit. Makes you mentally crazy. I mean, you might like I said, you lose 15 pounds, but it's coming back with 30 of its friends. It's
Yes.
calling its friends to come in, calling the cavalry. So, and because when you gain excess fat for whatever reason, well, okay, let me back that up. We always gain excess fat for one reason. Our intake does not match our output, no matter how you slice it. Calories in, calories out is a thing, but there are a lot of things that's a simplification that all planes crash because of gravity, right? So there's always things that come back behind it, right? And there's lots of trauma. People have told me, you just needed therapy. Oh, like I didn't try that for 20 years? I mean, I did, right? We all did. But the thing is, and this is one of the other super important things that I learned from amazing endocrinologists, which they're not usually super entertaining in lectures, I'm going to tell you. He said, once your fat mass, because there's fat mass disease and there's metabolic fat disease. They're both. They're two separate things, right? Fat mass disease, obstructive sleep apnea, osteoarthritis, things like that. Then you've got the metabolic disease. Once your fat mass hits a critical point, it becomes its own endocrine organ. I was like, that's it. Mind blown. Like, wait, what? And because he got shit, I love this. He got poo-pooed by the entire endocrinology community for being an obesity medicine doctor. So, because they're like, that's not a real endocrinologist. He's like, I am the most important endocrinologist because look at the size of these endocrine organs out there. Which I thought was fantastic.
Oh my God, I love that so much. But think about it, right? Like the pancreas, endocrine organ, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, so in comparison, you're fat to pancreas, right? Like, hello, like
let's go to the pituitary. I mean, come on.
No, it's teeny little.
Look at those little adrenals.
Yeah.
Mine are screaming in there. I'm always stressed out, right?
Yeah.
So
we had Dr. Ali on our show once, Dr. Moe, and she was saying there are a lot of people that are because we know that obesity, right? It's genetic, right? Like we know there's a lot of things, environment, all of that, but a significant amount of it is genetic. She's like 70% of your weight is predetermined, right?
Yep.
So she's like, there are people that are walking around that have obesity, but they will never qualify with the BMI, right? Like that's the whole idea.
Well, I mean, I guess I did because I was 29 and a half plus hyperlipidemia.
Yeah.
But I spent 45 years, like I could do an Ironman. I could do an Ironman at 150 something. I could do an Ironman at 120 something.
Well, I think we all know BMI is bullshit anyway. That is what we have.
I talked about this today. It kind of isn't actually.
Oh, tell us.
So let me offer just a teeny tiny bit of contradictory point of view, right?
Okay, take it.
Here's the thing is too, if I'm looking at somebody and you tell me I have a BMI of 30, I know if it's a bodybuilder 30. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, you've got to take it in context.
Sure.
But the flip side, if you're a really big bodybuilder, even natural, that heavy, our internal organs aren't meant to tolerate that much weight. So it does put stress on your organs. So whether it's a low BMI, high BMI, granted, it's across populations. Nothing in medicine, so little in medicine is perfect, right?
Yeah,
nothing.
Absolutely.
How about nothing?
It's all educated guess at this point.
Right? We call it practicing. But that's why BMI actually it is worth it. But to use it for insurance and cutoffs, but that's exactly the same as saying I don't deserve zepbound because my BMI is 20.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I think, and a heroin addict doesn't deserve it either.
Specifically, like also we've heard like ethnicities, are proportioned differently, if you will, and they may not look like they are fat, right? But ultimately, like maybe their BMI is or isn't, and like those things just all play a role. It's just sort of like this big swath that we use, and I think it's like
you use it in a 3-second check and say you don't qualify, go home.
Yes,
that's trash.
Or even honestly, even that you like do where like I think that's the problem. It's like it always should have been included as the bigger picture, like the circumference of your waist and all those things, right? But it isn't. I'm telling you, I have been in a big body my whole life, and I've never once, even to this day, had a doctor measure my stomach. ever. Nobody
I
ever was
never
like,
have.
let
Like,
me.
I think about that because, I spent a million years as an athletic trainer and we did that stuff all the time, right? Because we used what we had.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm real good with a pair of calipers. Let me tell you, I can tell you your body fat. I did that for a lot of years.
Yeah.
I
But
can
like,
prove
I've never had anybody do that.
Like, don't threaten us with a good time now. Yeah.
Right.
I do think I went to do something at school and they did like the things where they like, you put the other kinds of measurements. You know what I mean? Like, put your hands on these bars and that measured some stuff. And
That was probably, it's a Cooper fitness test.
Yeah, it was something like that. I feel like it was
Hated
one of
that. I always sucked at that.
Yeah,
because I was
and there's always staring at you, and you're like, ew. Ugh.
I know. I was the one who had to sit around and wait too long because my heart rate would never come down like it was supposed to.
Yeah.
The good news is, tirzepatide has brought my heart rate up higher than what it was, and it stayed. It didn't go away after 6 months. Now, on the other hand, I also have COVID-induced things.
We have someone in our community that struggles with that too.
About long COVID.
But I have to say, I don't have a diagnosis. That's how I roll, right?
Yeah.
I did go to the cardiologist before I did my last couple long distance triathlons because I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to die.
Yeah.
But I mean, I had like over 2 weeks, I had 4,000 extra beats.
Yeah.
And she's like, they seem to stop at the end. I said, no, I got sick of hitting the button. I'll be honest. She goes, oh yeah, they were here. You just weren't hitting the button. I said, I was freaking tired, but I have to say losing the excess weight,
"20 seconds a week to lose 20% of your weight in a year with diet and exercise. That's the power of GLP-1s through Ro. Ro helps find the medication that's right for you, based on cost, availability, and your weight loss goals. Losing weight with GLP-1s is possible through Ro.
Hey, GLP-1 plus size community. Before we jump into the podcast, please take the time to leave us a 5-star review on whatever audio platform you're listening to the podcast on. Share your story and how the podcast has helped you. This will help us get referred up in the audio platform so that we can reach more people that need our help, our support, and guidance from our doctors. Help us get loud and change things.
Are you interested in understanding GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, wegovy, or Mounjaro? Then join us on the Plus Sides Cracking the Obesity Code, the groundbreaking podcast helping people change their lives one episode at a time. The Plus Sides podcast is a disruptor. We're breaking down barriers, smashing stereotypes, and sharing inspiring stories that'll leave you feeling informed and empowered. Join us every week to learn from doctors who are specialists around GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, wegovy, or Mounjaro. They'll provide you with science and facts to validate these incredible stories. But that's not all. We'll also bring you the voices of the GLP-1 Mounjaro TikTok community, real people who face the challenges of obesity-related diseases and disorders and discovered the incredible plus sides of GLP-1 medications. Our episodes are filled with heartwarming stories, laughter, and moments of triumph. You'll connect with our amazing community members who are reclaiming their health and experiencing their fullest lives. Are you ready to embark on a journey of discovery and empowerment? Tune in to the Plus Sides Cracking the Obesity Code, and together we'll change the narrative around obesity and end the stigma. Subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform and join our incredible community. Let's celebrate the plus sides of life together, because every story deserves to be heard. Every life deserves to shine, and everyone deserves access to expert knowledge and medication. The Plus Sides Podcast. You're not alone. It's not your fault.